Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're continuing this really fascinating journey into the intersection of technology, our careers, and well, our own inner lives.
Yeah, it's part 3 of our cinematic 11-part series.
Exactly. Exploring every single chapter of Breeze Dong's book, A Soulful Transition.
Finding heart-led career in the age of AI.
Right. And our mission today zeroes in on chapter 3, which has this really provocative title. It's called How to Love Your Job Without Marrying It.
Which is such a great hook, right? Because if our previous discussions were about clearing out the noise from the information you consume, today is something a bit more, I guess, tender.
Yeah, clearing the clutter from your actual identity. The goal here is to help you put down this completely impossible burden of trying to be the fuel and the engine and the road all at once for your organization.
Because it's a transition that really requires looking at the invisible forces shaping our professional lives. We spend so much time optimizing our productivity.
Oh, constantly.
Right. But we rarely stop to examine how deeply enmeshed our sense of self has become with our actual output.
Yeah, and to get us into that mindset, I really want you to picture a scenario for a second. Think about that feeling when you catch your reflection in the bathroom mirror on like a random Tuesday night,
Oh, man.
and there's just this hollow, totally drained look staring back at you.
The toothbrush is just hovering there in midair. The water is running in the sink, but your mind is like miles and miles away from your own bathroom.
Exactly. You are physically standing in your house, but mentally. You are drafting this highly defensive email about Q3 deliverables.
Yeah.
And the bleed over, it doesn't stop there.
Right.
I mean, the next day you go to a family dinner and actually bring up those same Q3 deliverables, practically watching your relative's eyes just glaze over as you speak.
Right, because it's an inability to turn the professional switch to the off position.
Wow.
It becomes an all-consuming state of being. And in that state, when a project at work hits a roadblock, it doesn't process as just a professional frustration. It registers in your nervous system as a deep internal wobble.
Like your actual safety is under threat.
Exactly. It feels as though your physical safety is somehow compromised.
Well, if you recognize that person staring into the bathroom mirror, you are not alone. That's the archetype the author refers to as the company man, or woman, of course.
Right. And to stop being entirely consumed by our jobs, we first need to dissect why we willingly carry so much of this organizational weight in the first place.
Which points directly to this really toxic cultural myth we've all kind of bought into, the hero leader.
Oh, yes.
We've absorbed this narrative that if we just, push harder, wake up earlier, optimize every single minute of our day, we can individually fix any systemic issue.
Which is a belief that relies on a completely false premise of isolation. I mean, we are trained to internalize every single difficulty.
Like it's always our fault.
Yeah, if a project fails, your immediate internal monologue says, I didn't push my team hard enough. Or if the market shifts and a product flops, you tell yourself, I should have foreseen the macroeconomic trends.
You take the weight of the whole world onto your shoulders.
Right. But organizations are vast, complex, living webs of relationships. They possess their own hidden currents and anxieties. This is what the author terms the systemic perspective.
And adopting that lens, it completely shifts the paradigm, doesn't it? Because it suggests we aren't just acting as isolated agents.
No, not at all.
It means the anxiety you feel tightening in your chest during a tense status meeting, it might not actually be your personal anxiety. You might be acting as what does she call it, a symptom bearer.
Yes, a symptom bearer. That phrasing is so crucial. When a company lacks clear leadership, or say it's navigating a massive market disruption, that ambient stress has to go somewhere.
It seeks an outlet.
Exactly. And often, the most conscientious people in the room unconsciously absorb that ambient tension and manifest it as personal panic.
That reminds me of the check engine light on a dashboard.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like, if that light starts glowing red, you wouldn't assume it's because you are personally a bad driver. You recognize you're simply the dashboard displaying a deeper issue within the engine itself.
Precisely.
Though, okay, playing devil's advocate here for a second. Modern corporate culture constantly praises extreme ownership.
Right.
We're told that taking total responsibility for everything in our orbit is the hallmark of a great professional.
Yeah, it's a very common buzzword.
So where do we draw the line between healthy responsibility and just becoming a sponge for a broken system?
Well, the distinction really lies in the scope of control. Taking ownership is absolutely vital for the tasks and decisions that actually sit on your desk.
Right.
But the systemic mindset asks you to observe the invisible architecture shaping the reality around those tasks. Extreme ownership turns destructive when you begin taking ownership of the system's foundational flaws as if they were your personal moral failings.
Ah, I see.
So softening that hero complex doesn't mean you abandon your work ethic. It just means you recognize the system's dysfunction is not a reflection of your individual worth.
Which brings us to a massive complicating factor. I mean, if we are all operating within this invisible, delicate web of organizational relationships, we really have to look at what happens when AI enters the chat.
Oh, completely scrambles the architecture of that web.
Yes. AI is acting as a massive accelerant to a trend that was already trapping people, which is the flat hierarchy.
Right, because for the past decade, we've heard companies boast about being agile, eliminating bosses, organizing into these fluid circles.
And AI amplifies this because it aggressively democratizes information and capability.
Exactly. Consider a junior analyst who barely has a year of experience. Armed with the right generative AI prompts, they can suddenly produce a comprehensive strategy document that historically would have required the sign-off of a senior gatekeeper with 20 years of institutional knowledge.
Which on paper sounds like a utopian meritocracy. I mean, the visible org chart dissolves, the gatekeepers are gone, and anyone with a good idea can just execute it.
Right.
But the text argues this actually creates an incredibly dangerous environment for our mental health.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because systemic theory teaches us that there is no such thing as a truly structureless human group.
There's always some kind of order.
Yes. When you strip away the visible structures, the formal titles, the clear reporting lines, the invisible structures don't just disappear, they just operate in the shadows.
Wow.
Human systems have a natural gravity. Even in a perfectly flat organization, someone still controls the budget, someone still holds the institutional relationships, someone ultimately signs the paychecks.
So when we pretend everyone is perfectly equal, we generate what the author calls a systemic fog.
Exactly. Systemic fog. Because nobody knows where the actual authority lies, so everybody is constantly guessing and posturing.
And that ambient anxiety we talked about earlier would just absolutely skyrocket in a fog like that.
You lose your footing. The order of place becomes entirely obscured. And in a fluid, high-speed, AI-driven environment, understanding systemic gravity transitions from being this high-level leadership philosophy to a basic survival mechanism.
Right.
If you cannot sense the invisible currents of priority and structure, when the traditional org chart dissolves, you will be consumed by the fog.
So the obvious question then is, how do we build that compass? Like, how do we navigate the fog without letting the anxiety just seep into our bones?
Well, Breeze adapts a specific formula from a systemic pioneer named Bert Hellinger to redefine what healthy professional commitment looks like.
Okay, let's hear it.
The formula is love equals seeing plus space minus judgment.
Now, using the word love in a corporate context usually raises some eyebrows.
Definitely. But the author is clear, this isn't about romantic affection or, toxic positivity.
Right.
It is defined as a whole self-capacity to be fully present with reality exactly as it is without needing to force it into the shape you prefer.
Yeah. So let's break down the components of that formula, starting with seeing. The company man is perpetually wrestling with what he thinks ought to be.
He's exhausted because he's fighting a phantom version of his workplace.
Yeah, like a boss who should be more supportive, or an IT deployment that shouldn't be delayed.
Exactly. Seeing requires dropping those projections and recognizing the hidden architecture of the workplace through 3 specific systemic lenses.
And the foundational lens is acknowledging your actual standing in the organization, your place.
Right. We often stumble headfirst into burnout because we unknowingly step out of our lane.
Yeah.
You might find yourself trying to act as a therapist for your direct reports.
Or attempting to play savior to a manager who is actively failing.
Yes, you take on a weight that doesn't belong to your specific role.
And AI complicates our understanding of place immensely, doesn't it?
Oh, vastly.
Because an AI tool can simulate competence beautifully. It can draft an email that sounds exactly like an empathetic, seasoned executive, but AI has no actual place in the human system.
None. It carries no personal risk, no mortgage to pay, no tenure. It's merely a tool.
But the danger in that systemic fog is how easily we can unconsciously elevate that tool above human intuition because it sounds so authoritative.
Exactly. True. Seeing invites you to look at your messy, AI-disrupted hierarchy and clearly define your coordinates. You have to be able to state internally, I am the human here. I am the director of marketing. I am not the CEO. I am not the savior of this company. And I am not the algorithm. I am simply here, occupying my appropriate size.
Operating in your right size. That naturally leads into the second lens of seeing, which is about inclusion and history.
The order of belonging.
Right. We have a tendency to want to surgically remove the ugly or difficult parts of our work environment.
We try to ignore a massive product failure from 3 years ago, or we try to isolate a particularly difficult stakeholder in another department, just hoping they fade away.
But systems possess incredibly long memories.
They do.
Okay.
When you attempt to resolve friction by excluding elements, pretending a past failure didn't happen, or icing out a dissenting voice that excluded energy, doesn't vanish.
It lingers.
It haunts the culture, creating a subtle drag on every new initiative. Seeing requires looking at the difficult parts of your culture and acknowledging their presence. You don't have to like the difficult stakeholder, but you do have to admit they are part of the picture.
Which brings us to the final aspect of seeing, the balance of exchange, the order of exchange. This strikes at the heart of the company man's dilemma.
Absolutely.
We overgive our health, our evenings, our weekends, operating under the delusion that sacrificing ourselves makes us uniquely valuable.
But overgiving doesn't just hurt the individual, it actually creates a systemic imbalance. When you constantly give more than your role requires, you silently demand a level of recognition or compensation that the system is rarely equipped to provide.
And that breeds profound resentment.
Exactly. To practice this kind of attention, seeing in real time, the author suggests a shift in physical awareness.
Okay, how so?
The next time you find yourself in a highly charged, stressful meeting, pause. Drop your awareness out of your spinning intellect and down into your body. Look at the room not as a battlefield you have to conquer, but as a topographical map.
You observe the terrain. You ask yourself who is visibly carrying the stress or what glaring issue is being completely ignored by everyone speaking.
Yes.
It's almost like looking at the Matrix, right? You start seeing the underlying green code of the system, the flows of anxiety and authority, instead of getting emotionally hooked by the drama of the characters in the simulation.
That shift from participant to observer is incredibly powerful. You stop fighting the symptoms and simply observe the currents, realizing, I see. The river is flowing in this direction today.
But seeing the code of the Matrix is only step one. I mean, if you're standing in the middle of a systemic mess, simply observing the dysfunction won't necessarily protect your peace.
No, it won't.
That requires the second element of the formula, creating space.
And this is frequently the most counterintuitive step for deeply passionate professionals. We've been conditioned to equate caring with merging.
Right.
We operate under the assumption that if our team is stressed, we must also exhibit stress and solidarity to prove we are engaged leaders. But the systemic stance offers a paradox. To be of any actual use to a system in crisis, you must maintain a degree of distance. You have to be in the system, but not of it.
Consider the approach of a firefighter. They care deeply about their mission. They dedicate their lives to saving people.
Yeah.
But they don't sprint into a burning building in their street clothes, hyperventilating and panicking alongside the victims.
Exactly. They put on heavy protective gear, they follow protocols, and they maintain a cool professional distance. That space is exactly what allows them to see the structural integrity of the burning building and find the path to safety. The book actually references an old Taoist visualization regarding an empty boat to illustrate this kind of space.
Oh, I love this one.
Imagine you're navigating a boat down a river. Suddenly, another boat drifts into yours. If you look over and see the boat is empty, you simply push it away and keep steering.
You don't scream in anger at a piece of empty wood.
Right. But if there's a person steering that boat, your ego flares up, and you might yell at them for their incompetence. When we merge our identity with our job, we become the person reacting emotionally to every single bump in the river.
To help create that crucial distance, the text offers a brilliant visualization called the backpack practice. And if you are listening to this right now, I really want you to try this.
It's a great exercise.
Imagine your current job, the unread emails, the looming AI disruptions, the difficult personalities as a heavy, physical canvas backpack. Feel the actual weight of those obligations pressing down on your shoulders.
Really feel it.
Now, in your mind's eye, take that backpack off and place it on a table a few feet in front of you. You can still see it. You still care about the contents inside, but the backpack is over there, and you are over here. You have created breathing room between your identity and your obligations.
And in that space, freedom becomes possible. But to sustain that freedom, we must apply the final piece of the formula, minus judgment.
Right, because space evaporates the second you start silently criticizing everything around you.
Exactly. We constantly run an internal monologue of resistance. This strategy is wrong, management is incompetent, this reorganization shouldn't be happening.
And running that monologue is exhausting. It just drains your focus.
Resistance leaks vitality. Operating with constant judgment is the equivalent of trying to drive your car down the highway with the parking brake fully engaged.
That's such a visceral image.
You're burning fuel but getting nowhere. Systemic work invites us to practice absolute acknowledgement. You shift your internal narrative from the judgmental, this is bad, to the neutral, this is what is currently happening.
Yeah.
If your budget gets slashed, spiraling into resentment doesn't change the spreadsheet. You simply state, the budget has been cut, this is what is.
I have to offer some pushback on behalf of the high achievers out there, though. Doesn't agreeing to reality as it is and dropping all judgment sound dangerously close to giving up? If I don't judge a bad strategy, am I not just passively accepting failure?
It is a very common fear, but the mechanics of this shift produce the exact opposite result. Softening your judgment does not mean you endorse a bad strategy. It means you stop wasting massive amounts of mental energy, wishing the strategy was different.
Ah, I get it.
When you drop the resentment, you reclaim all that leaked vitality.
Yeah.
You can now use that energy to creatively and actively work with the reality on the ground.
You aren't accepting defeat. You're just accurately mapping the playing field so you can formulate a real game plan.
Exactly.
And when you combine these elements, seeing the invisible architecture, creating protective space, and dropping the exhausting judgment, you transition from the company man to what the author calls the conscious professional.
Right. You function as a thermostat that regulates the temperature of the room, rather than a thermometer that merely spikes and drops reacting to the ambient heat.
You still chop wood and carry water, meaning you answer the emails, you attend the strategy sessions, but you maintain a profound awareness of the difference between the corporate game and your own soul.
But translating that beautiful theory into action on a chaotic Wednesday afternoon is the ultimate challenge.
It always is.
The author anticipates this and provides a systemic hygiene checklist. These are essentially 3 quick diagnostic checks you can run when you feel the anxiety rising and you suspect you're slipping out of your right place.
Let's walk through those scenarios. Say you're looking around and realizing you are working drastically harder than everyone else on your project team. You're putting in extra hours, checking their work, and starting to feel a deep, simmering resentment toward them.
That is the overfunctioning check. The instinct is to keep pushing out of frustration. The systemic shift is to deliberately step back.
Just leave a vacuum.
Yes. Focus strictly on your specific contribution and leave a vacuum. Often, when you stop overfunctioning and doing everyone else's work, the sheer silence forces others to finally step up and fill the space with their own responsibility.
Okay, here's a different scenario. You are managing a team through a difficult reorganization, and you find yourself feeling intensely personally guilty for their stress. You're trying to shield them from bad news to keep them happy.
This triggers the parenting check. We do this because facing our team's disappointment is uncomfortable for us. But treating adults like children misaligns the systemic gravity. Shielding them infantilizes them.
Right.
The shift is to respect their dignity as capable professionals. Telling them the hard truth, saying the budget is cut and navigating this will be difficult, allows them to carry their own systemic weight.
And then there is the instinct to simply avoid the mess altogether. You realize you're actively dodging a difficult conversation, or you're creating a bizarre, convoluted workflow just to avoid interacting with one specific department.
That is the exclusion check. By avoiding the friction, you're trapping energy in the system. The systemic hygiene practice here is to gently acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Just call it out.
Simply bringing the excluded issue or person back into the conscious conversation releases that stuck energy and allows the system to flow again.
To ground all of this in something tactile, the chapter includes a fascinating tabletop visualization exercise. Because our intellects can easily trick us into believing we're being objective, but our physical intuition often knows exactly where the systemic knots are.
It's so true.
The practice involves taking a knotty workplace problem and literally mapping it out on your desk using everyday objects.
Yeah, you might grab a salt shaker, a coin, a coffee mug, and a pen. You assign one object to represent you, another to represent your boss, one for the project, and one for the problem. Without overthinking it, you intuitively place them on the table to reflect the current dynamic.
It externalizes your internal map. When you actually look down at the table, you might realize you physically place the object representing you as a barrier directly between your boss and the problem. Or you might see that you place the problem object right on top of yourself.
Exactly. And the transformative part of the exercise is the physical adjustment. You pick up the object representing you, and you move it to a different position on the table, a spot that feels stronger, more balanced, and clearer. You literally feel the shift in your body as you step out of the tangle.
By physically anchoring that feeling of finding your right place, you can recall that sensation the next time you walk into a fraught meeting.
Yes, it is a physical embodiment of the chapter's core mantra. I am in this system, but I am not of it. I take my right place, and I leave the rest.
We've traced the entire arc today. We started with the exhausted company man, burning himself alive to serve as the engine for a machine that will never stop demanding fuel.
And we've charted the path to becoming a grounded, conscious professional who navigates the anxiety of the modern workplace by seeing the hidden structures, maintaining internal space, and dropping the heavy weight of judgment.
It's a critical evolution, particularly as we confront the fog created by artificial intelligence, dissolving all the traditional rules of how work gets done.
It really is.
Which brings me to a final, somewhat provocative thought for you to carry with you as we wrap up. If artificial intelligence can now simulate the ultimate company man, a tool that operates 24 hours a day, endlessly obsesses over data deliverables, never complains about burnout, and never needs to go home to its family to rest, does that mean our humanity is no longer a liability?
Oh, wow.
Perhaps our physical limits, our need for emotional boundaries, and our ability to consciously detach from the machine are actually going to become our most valuable professional assets in the future.
That is a profound paradigm shift. The very traits we've spent decades trying to hide in the corporate world, our need for rest, our boundaries, and our souls, might soon be the only things that meaningfully differentiate us.
So, the next time you find yourself catching your reflection in the bathroom mirror on a Tuesday night with your toothbrush hovering in midair and your mind racing about tomorrow's meeting, just take a breath.
Visualize that heavy backpack.
Put it down on the table. Remind yourself that you are merely in the system, but you are not of it.
And then, get some sleep.
A perfect place to pause. Thank you for joining us for part 3 of our cinematic 11-part deep dive series into Breeze Dong's A Soulful Transition. Be sure to join us next time as we continue this journey together.